Recording in progress. The problem that I have to see is once a group starts, I can't see it as long. Jumped over to TV and news, and then we went back in. Can't get it to move. Yeah, let's try. This is not responding at all. I think go ahead and turn it on.
Okay, well, hello everybody, welcome. Thank you for coming out tonight. It's beautiful Thursday night, and I appreciate seeing everybody participate in these public meetings. This is where Steeplechase, just in case we're looking, somebody else is maybe looking for an Olympics watch party or something. That's next door, but yeah, do appreciate everybody coming out tonight. My name is Scott Pearson. I'm a civil engineer with the town of Windsor. I'll be working on some of the questions and trying to help walk through some of the information that the town is working on and the concerns, the phone calls, emails, and things that we've received from you all. My boss, John Thornhill, is back here in the corner. He's the Director of Community Development. And then we have Mr. Barry Wilson, town board.
Yes, I'm Barry Wilson on the, I live down the road in River West. I've been there for about over 21 years now. I was elected to town board to represent Steeplechase. Really all the county road 13 neighborhoods, including Raindance now that they moved the line. So I was elected 2018, so I'm in my 4th year now. So if I run again, it'll be 2022. But anyway, yeah, I heard from a lot of people on a lot of different subjects around the traffic at Steeplechase, and here we are. So I have some business cards, you know, to find me online. And so I'll stick around afterwards and we'll chat. Thanks.
So again, welcome. We'll kind of get in the purpose of this meeting tonight. I wanted to provide an opportunity for you all who are the residents of Steeplechase to come in person, help communicate some of the emails and the phone calls and social media posts that we've received. So really tonight is about you guys and trying to share information, share what you're seeing, what you're experiencing, so that we can incorporate that into our decision-making process. As you'll see, we'll get into going through some of the concerns, the safety issues, the speeding, and those topics. but also what studies and things that we've done as the town to help address and help study and analyze that. And so your feedback is a part of that information gathering effort so that we have a good understanding of really what's going on. So I'll do a quick background, just information about the subdivision and the Steeplechase Drive itself. And then we'll get into the Apex Design, who is our traffic engineering consultant, and what their study looked at, what they did, and talk about the next steps and follow up from this meeting. And then at the end, I'll open it up for questions and allow you guys to let me know how the Steelers and the Cowboys are. So
Can I interrupt, please, before you start? Can you, on the Zoom, we're seeing the presenter view
have
instead
lived
of the
here
regular
for
view?
Many years, and you have seen a lot of growth and a lot of things change over that period of time.
Excuse
That's
us,
something
we can't
that we-
hear it all. There's a ton of background noise.
We're trying to stay ahead of it and try to keep up with some of the growth. And our efforts in engineering are to, again, collect the data, the information from you all, put together a plan, figure out how to budget and finance all of that, and implement the most efficient solutions. And sometimes it's an incremental approach, and we'll continue to monitor and address those as we see more information come through. So we have also noticed with growth, the increase in traffic and speeding goes hand in hand with that. So this slide here, basically just a general overview of what we've started with and how we've gotten here today. So again, talking about your feedback as residents, the data that we plan on collecting, our partnership with Apex Design, who was our traffic engineer. They collected speed data and they collected traffic volumes and counts and actually laid out the tubes that many of you maybe have seen out on the road, and cameras and other ways of collecting data about the speeds and volumes. So a very brief general background. The neighborhood the subdivision plat was proposed in 1998. It was approved in 1999 and appeared in the town's comprehensive plan. It also appeared in the 2002 iteration, 2017 roadway improvement plan, and again in our current transportation master plan. What these pictures are showing is the roadway classification. The thick line, the green line here that you see is major collector road, which means that it was planned as a collector for the neighborhood local traffic, the streets to funnel into the collector road and then provide regional connections through the other arterials and other collectors around town.
What road is it?
So, yeah, sorry, that's difficult. The green line here is Steeplechase, and this was from, on the left, 1998. That's an early iteration of it where Highland Meadows on the right is the solid green line. And between the orange here, which is Colorado Boulevard, and then Steeplechase comes across to Highland Meadows.
Now it's Colorado.
And how it snaked through. That's how the map appeared in the 2002, some of those early plans. And basically what this is showing is the original plans for the subdivision. The intention was to provide a regional network for many cars to make connections and get to and from through town. So the capacity, just read. Yeah, yeah.
On the right side,
What the designations are and stuff.
designations are for
You
those
bet.
streets.
You
And I'll
bet.
say too, we can send this out to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So we're also Zooming. So this is kind of a recorded video too, so you guys can listen to it. You can pull it up at home too and look at the video, and we can definitely email that out. But the legends on the right, so the solid red line is an urban major arterial with 4 through lanes. The dashed red line is a rural major arterial with 4 lanes. The orange, solid orange and dashed orange are urban minor arterials with 4 lanes and a rural minor arterial with 2 through lanes. So that's Fairgrounds Avenue and Colorado Boulevard on the north-south running on east-west there. And then Highland Meadows and Steeplechase and County Road 30, 71st Street up there. You can see the green dash lines. Those are urban major collector roads and rural collector road, which they're both 2 through lanes. The capacity that's planned for those is 8,000 average trips per day for vehicles. So the number of cars that could be going through that. Right? Yep.
8,000 trips per day on that haystack.
So haystack is designated as a minor collector. So that threshold is lower because it's tying in Crossroads and Steeplechase. So the amount of traffic that's planned and what we design haystack to support is a lower number than that. So
Scott, not to. This is really immaterial though, because that's not how it actually is shaped now.
So we'll get into how it's shaped now. So moving on with the planning and how the subdivision was approved in 1999. Each of the lots that have direct access, the frontage onto Steeplechase Drive, have a note that's recorded with the plat that says the driveway must be a circular, kind of a round driveway that provides the head in and head out access so that nobody's backing out onto the higher volume traffic of Steeplechase Drive, and nobody is trying to back out into the higher speed with that road too. So, so we do have some of that information. I pulled this graphic, which we can take a look at closer here, but this image, this graphic is from our current transportation master plan, which compares in March 2020, when the plan was adopted, what the existing volumes were, volumes of average daily traffic was in the light blue, and then the dark blue circles are the projected volumes of what, based on the information incorporated in the transportation master plan, what those road classifications, what the developments, the subdivision zoning planning, all of the big network of long-range planning, how that fits together, what those future volumes would support. So the way that we design the road is with the future projections in mind. And what I want to highlight on this slide is you can see, and Steeplechase is a little bit faint here, the text, but you can see Steeplechase running across the road here. And we have a small light blue dot with a much bigger dark blue circle around it. And what that tells us is that you guys are used to, you were experiencing a lower existing traffic. It was a small light blue circle, and now there's rapid growth, right? So we talked about that at the beginning where based on the development and everything going on with Northern Colorado and Windsor in particular, we're reaching and approaching some of that blue circle. Another point to make on that is that, and we'll get into some of the counts that our traffic engineer provided. But the capacity that those bigger blue dots are showing is 8 and 12,000 trips per day, vehicles per day. And the counts that we're at was still significantly less than that, at 2,000 or 3,000 per day, where we're at today. So
I'm trying to listen. This is not very loud.
no.
Let me use the mute.
So, yeah, and in the 2040 plans, right, that's part of our, and it's an incremental approach to improving our roadway network. So,
Okay,
yes,
so essentially, Steeplechase's plan is a whole bus track,
right,
correct? Okay.
yes, and we
And you
want
designed
to,
the house as a circular drive
Right.
because you knew it.
because that was a planned major collector to, yes, collect lots of
Did you
traffic
also
through.
plan all those apartments that are going in? And green dance?
Those, yes, in the planning and the planning process that the town has, those are a part of and incorporated into the decision-making process. And so we do take the densities of each of those developments and we incorporate that into our traffic projections. So we use those numbers as we're continually getting more developments come in. We use those numbers to keep, revising and working into our not just traffic projections, but the actual capital projects and our developer-driven improvements that when a developer comes in and wants to put in a multifamily apartment complex or something of a higher density like that, we take those numbers and say, okay, based on the numbers that are projected in your development, we are looking at our existing roadway network, what's currently in place, and what's here now is not sufficient to support what your development would bring at full build out, right? So in order for certain development like those, the higher density and the single family, many houses on either side, the developer then has to either pay for
Given all the
future improvements, which
density
we
you have up there.
continue budgeting for. And we incorporate that into a large pot of money that gets appropriated to certain improvements.
Well, the light
And
blue is
in other
existing,
cases,
the dark blue
sometimes
is.
in more.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Okay.
When we see that there's a development with high density that is going to bring in a lot of traffic and our roads right now don't support that or won't support that, then we do have the developer to make those improvements before we approve their development to build out so that the road is brought up to a level that can support the added people and the added traffic.
Interesting to see when they're going to make this.
That's sometimes a near term, kind of a shorter term. Before you can get in there, you have to build it up. And then there's additional money that's contributed for those long-term future improvements that continue to be built out as a town, as Windsor grows.
So when you plan to expand 13 and cross, is it 2040?
It'll be sooner than 2040. We did have Apex looked at, we studied Colorado Boulevard. Yeah. And so part of that, again, is evaluating our priority process and working through
Yes, 2015, 4 lanes.
a lot of moving parts, right? And so there's a lot in that question to answer, right?
The big part of that is that there's a lot of extra cars jumping off crossroads because it jumps up and they jump through it. And look at the original, if you go back a slide, that didn't used to go all the way through to fairgrounds.
Right.
And so now we just use that as a way to get out of.
East and west.
because
Yeah.
the other roads just won't. So by not making those 4 lanes, it pushes traffic.
I think there is some truth to that, and I agree with that. Yeah. But there's also other improvements that we've made along Crossroads and Colorado Boulevard and other arterials and other collectors and efforts that have been made to make the overall road network a little bit more efficient. So the roundabout at New Liberty and Steeplechase and Colorado was, yeah. So as far as increasing the flow of traffic and the capacity plan, you've had a question for a while.
I understand, and I've understood for a long time that was not true. I've been in Steeplechase for 22, 23 years. And when way before rain dance was even a conception, and that was supposed to be a state lots, not 1,000 apartments now.
Okay, girl, let's go.
Working on the other. So what's happening, and I live very
I can walk
close to
there and
Steeplechase.
stay on.
What's happening is Crossroads.
Okay, girls, can we get everywhere? Can we actually get around?
all
I'm a little worried
jammed
about all their plans they've planted and how
Nobody
listed
wants
they
to
look.
wait in line. So they come
Don't
through
look well.
our neighborhood.
They look like they need a big,
This
nice
was
drink
a
of water.
quiet Neighborhood that literally got divided in half
Well, you should have been doing that.
to have that kind of traffic.
The traffic is one, jams up all the way from
Oh, yeah,
fairgrounds, all the way down to the roundabout by the fishing.
you have to wait.
That's how bad it is. from what I've seen it.
Could that not be the roundabout
So
to keep traffic flowing?
and that is, yes, so that's something that we're looking at, and I can talk about that a little bit later too, as some of the long range planning too.
But does that make sense to you, Scott? You understand what we're saying is from Crossroads in the morning, before COVID, that road would jam up, Crossroads would jam up past the light counter, would take you down the hill to around. Okay, the next roundabout where the bridge is, right? And that drives the people in the town. So there's minutes, you know, off the east back,
And-
jump over Steeplechase.
Yeah, so part of the, like Scott was saying though, Steeplechase is another east-west connect.
We're doing traffic.
And we are,
Yeah.
this year, or next year, that portion that you're talking about that's backing up, that will go to 4 lanes. We're gonna get that part done. The part further west of Colorado Boulevard, problem we have there is the south half is one of them.
Yeah.
We gotta get them, and they have no reason or incentive to do that portion of the road, because that's not gonna develop. So we gotta work through that, but there are plans to get all of that to 4 lanes.
But even, but you still have a question of the light. The light is.
Well,
what's
and
making
that's gonna,
people
yeah, we're looking at making that around, right,
Yes.
to keep traffic moving through there, not stopping.
So,
Sorry, just
yes, and then
how, you said you have data on how many cars are going on Steeplechase right now? Is it at the capacity that you thought it was?
it is lower.
It is lower. So traffic right now on Steeplechase and Haystack is lower than what it had been planned for. So it might seem like a lot more traffic, but they had planned, Steeplechase itself is a good road. It was meant to hold traffic, and it's not even at the capacity that they had planned for yet.
But not
So-
That's in 2040. That's a good situation.
Yeah, but 2040 is still far away, and they're gonna.
Okay, we'll, seems like right now, as we're talking about traffic and counts and stuff, is a perfect opportunity,
Let's move on.
yeah, to throw Ben Waldman.
Yeah, I apologize for being tardy. I got stuck in traffic.
Must have been on Steeplechase, right?
But no, the point you just brought up is a great one. So Steeplechase is still as a collector roadway. And according to the town's transportation plan, collector roadway has a capacity of 8,000 trips a day. Right now, it's about 3,500. So it's less than half of that capacity right now. and can really accommodate quite a bit more traffic. And it was really built to accommodate more traffic. There may be more traffic coming as the town continues to develop. But that's what it was intended for. It was intended as a collector road to collect the traffic from the local roads and then distribute it on bigger arterial roads.
May I ask, when you say that you've counted, was that when you put all those, like there was a camera like thing up on, and there were like 4 or 5 of them all along? Was that what you're basing your count on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I live directly on Steeplechase. And I can tell you that that was the quietest 3 days that we've ever experienced. And the story we got, and I think Barry can back us up on this, is that as soon as people saw cameras on Steeplechase, it went out on social media and it was unbelievable how quiet the traffic was. So that study, all I'm gonna say is that study is pure bogus when it comes to how much traffic is on the road, because those were 3 extremely quiet days.
That's the only way we can study the traffic.
Then,
We don't have
if
any
you
way.
put those, maybe, I don't know if you can do it, but put those little rubber tubes that people drive over. People don't pay any attention to those. They think it's just counting cars or something, which maybe that's all it is.
Absolutely.
If you did something like that, that probably, but the fact that they had these things standing up where everybody could see them and it freaked them out.
Yeah.
Everybody said, don't go that way, they're taking pictures of you.
Can I ask a question? If you had to guess, do you think there's twice as much traffic?
3 times, 3 to 4 times as much as what you guys actually, yes. Because we experience it
there
every
was
day.
really-
We watch the cars go back and forth. I work out in the yard daily. And I can tell you that that day with those, it was there, they put it up like, I think it was on a Wednesday. And all of a sudden, my wife and I were going, what happened to all the traffic? And I even commented in the email to Barry that, you know, that this doesn't seem to be, and he said, well, that's what the word went out and people stopped going. So I would say that if you took that estimate there and at least multiplied it by 3, you would get a much more accurate count of the number of cars.
We just do math for a minute. Because 8,000 trips per day on a 24-hour day is 333 cars. So if you're saying 3,500 is what they measure, and you should triple that,
Yeah.
then that's more like 10,500 per day, which would mean that you would be seeing 500 cars per hour on a 24-hour day. I can't even.
It's not even.
I mean, we live on
Really,
Haystack,
what
and
you
we drive
estimate
Steeplechase
is
a lot.
during the peak hour, typically you see 10% of traffic per day. So you're saying there's over 10,000 trips, you're gonna be seeing over 1,000 trips in an hour.
And also the other thing about those 3 days is there were almost no commercial trucks.
Exactly.
We did see trucks in our counts. We saw
Oh, I'm sure you did, but nothing like, you know, and that's one thing that I think, you know, I understand that there's a lot of building going on, so you're gonna have those commercial or the dump trucks and things back and forth, and I've already been told on an email, well, that, you know, that will eventually die off. Yeah, that's gonna be quite a few years down the road, but the thing is if you exclude the dump trucks, many of those trucks are box trucks. They're commercial trucks. They're going both directions. When we first moved in here, when we did a commercial box truck that went down the road, we thought, well, they just missed the turn into the Walmart. They're just going around, circling through and everything. But lately, we've been seeing them come through, and we've watched them, and they go on through and up and over Liberty and our new Liberty. And so they're using Steeplechase, and the trucking routes are actually routing trucks. So those 3 days, we saw very few trucks, but those trucks are being routed down Steeplechase.
So why do you think the trucks went a different way that certain day?
There's no stop. There's one roundabout and no stops.
So why do you think they weren't there?
Because
we saw about
somebody put
six
out the
trucks in an
word.
hour.
Cars and trucks were way gone those 3 days.
So I want to get back to that. But you have also been waiting very patiently. Can we?
Okay, what's gonna happen with the 535 apartments on the corner and the rest of, which are probably going to be inhabited in the next 60 days. I'd like to see the numbers there. Plus, rain dance, there's not enough schools in Windsor, they're full, so they're gonna go to the County Road 5 school that was just built. So they're all gonna cut through Steeplechase. I'd like to see your numbers in 60 days.
Do it again, see what we think.
So we do continue to monitor it, and again, like I started this meeting with, is I'm gathering information from you guys too, and it's part of our way of formulating the plan and coming up with our solutions, right?
I have one more thing I want to say. Okay, what's gonna happen when the signal light goes on County Road 5 Fairgrounds? And Budweiser Event Center is changing their entrance, and it is going to come out with a signal light onto Steeplechase on every event.
We're talking about changing the signal.
Exactly.
One thing to add, yeah, there's no elementary school on County Road 5, technically it's a Loveland address. Because that's the area where Windsor meets Loveland, and so High Point Estates, correct? This, the school is PSD for the most of the kids, but also like my neighborhood, River West, Ridge West.
I didn't hear, I just came into
Those kids in those neighborhoods will go to that school on County Road 5. So they are close to 392. You think that
21%.
they are adding left turning lanes. That's what's going on kind of right now. And so, you know, when my kids went to like Fossil Ridge High School, they would back up in the morning because there was no left turning lane to go towards the interstate. So that's going to help there. A lot of improvements at County Road 5 and 392. But yeah, it's true. Some people and so on could choose to go to Steeplechase, but it seems like it would be the longer route. But you know, I'm sure some people might choose to go that way instead of getting on 392.
So those are good points. And again, it is all part of a large road network. And as Barry was talking about 392 and County Road 13, those are further away from the neighborhood a little bit, but it's all part of how traffic moves across Windsor and in Timnith and Loveland and Severance and throughout northern Colorado. So I want to make sure that we remember a big road network too. And so trying to make these improvements. But before we take any more questions, I want to get back into what Apex and Ben helped the town with as far as this most recent study through Steeplechase. And I'll allow Ben talk through the turning count movements at the intersections we've highlighted and let you describe a little bit more about the specifics of this study.
Yeah, so like we talked about earlier, we did do counts out there and saw our counters out there. And we looked at some daily counts and we looked at some peak hour counts as well, looking at the turning movements that you see here at the bottom. And we did see some trucks. I think there was about 4 to 6 trucks during the peak hour. So that's going to be about one every 5 minutes or so. Then we did what we call a level of service analysis. So we looked at the delay for the signalized or the intersections shown here, 1, 2, and 3. And we saw pretty, very low delay, 15 seconds, about, it's average. Some vehicles have 0 delay, some have some more. And on average, we saw about 15 seconds of delay per vehicle at these intersections. And that includes the delay on the side streets as well, right? That's just an average delay for the entire intersection. And so again, the intersections we looked at were Long Speed Circle West, Haystack Drive, and Long Speed Circle East. Next slide. So we, based on that analysis, we didn't see what we call a capacity issue. The roadway still has plenty of capacity and it's not causing a lot of delay for vehicles. What we did see though is a speeding issue. The posted speed limit is 35 and the average speed was 5 miles over that at around 40, and what we call the 85th percentile speed, which is really what we base things on, meaning that 85% of the traffic was traveling at that speed or less, was 45, almost 45 miles per hour, 43 to 44 miles per hour, which is higher than we would like on this road. And you can see that of the 3,000 or so trips that we counted, that most of them were right. And so only about 12% were going at or below the speed limit. So we do feel like some mitigation is needed for that.
And so again, highlighting capacity was not an issue with the counts that were collected, but speeding was. So then Ben helped prepare some recommendations for improvements.
Right, so our recommendation was to eliminate that center left turn lane. And we, again, looked at analysis to say, okay, if you don't have that left turn lane, people have to slow down, move through traffic, right? Because they're taking a left, and they're waiting for a gap. But there are plenty of gaps. The traffic is not that heavy to where they can make those lefts safely and not really impact the, cause significant delay to the traffic. It really didn't increase the delay much at all when we took away those left turns in our analysis. And so what we're proposing to do is, and again, that's just because there wasn't a lot of, this point here, there wasn't a lot of opposing traffic to cause a lot of delay there, right? Because there's lots of gaps. And so we did look at eliminating that left turn lane and narrowing the traffic lanes. And so what that does, and this talks a little bit about that there's been a lot of studies that narrow traffic lanes.
But that's not what he's talking about.
Hold on, slow down, because they slow down based on what they observe around them, right? If you drive down a narrow road, you tend to go slower because it just feels safer, right? And so by bringing in these lanes, and we can show this, I think, in the next slide. I might show, yeah. Squeezing down the lanes by introducing bike lanes, buffered bike lanes, which also provides more mobility for the bikes in the area and makes it feel safer to walk along the edge of the roadway because you're pushing the traffic in towards the middle, eliminating that left turn lane. And this up here shows a cross section of that. We feel like that'll do a pretty good job of slowing that traffic down. And so that is our recommended mitigation for that higher speed. We also recommend adding in some active signs. And so when you drive by these signs, if you're speeding, they flash at you and tell you you're speeding. And there's been, again, studies that show that that is effective in slowing people down when they're aware they're speeding. Not, some people don't care, of course, but a lot of people do. They don't want to violate the law and feel just once they realize they're speeding, they'll slow.
And I think one thing too, with lowering the speed limit a little bit, it cuts back the noise. And what's happening is once somebody hits that roundabout on New Liberty coming in, you go down. So you're accelerating at that point. Then I don't know who put the curb sign out there, but the curb sign says 35 miles an hour. That's our speed limit. So you're telling me that it's okay to go faster, but when you hit that curb, you better be going 35. And to me, 7th Street is a big road there. It's 30 miles an hour. Yes. Downtown is 30 miles an hour. And I think the thing that is so frustrating is the blatant disrespect for our residential community with people who do not live there. I was literally passed on Steeplechase Drive the other day. Passed. And I was going a little bit over the speed limit. So I know they were going 45 or 50 to go by. So at least I understand what you're talking about mirroring, yes. But I think the speed needs to come down a little bit more too, for noise. And we've had 3 accidents on that curve. 3 culverts, a culvert has been replaced 3 times now.
That would be us.
Yeah.
It's under construction right now.
A fence has been taken out. And the bus driver stops there. And I don't know how many times I have been at home and heard the bus driver wail on the horn because people don't even stop for the bus. And a kid is gonna get killed.
Yep.
That's
And they need to
what's
move
gonna
that bus route off the street.
Is a crosswalk a possibility at all?
Yes, I apologize for not mentioning that. Another recommendation is to add high visibility crosswalks. So what we call high visibility are what we typically consider a crosswalk, right? They're the
Yes,
striped
I know
bars.
you're talking about averages of like 42, 43, but it's those cars that are doing 60.
Sure.
And when they're doing it fast, like I live on Metal Art, and we can hardly cross the street to go on the right walking.
So we're recommending adding the striped crosswalks at all 3 of these intersections, which again will give people the feel that I'm driving through an area where there's pedestrians, there's bike lanes here. I shouldn't be going 60 miles per hour or 40 miles per hour.
So let's, sorry, black shirt.
Yeah, I just have one question. I mean, I've looked at, I travel all around. Speed bumps. I've heard, no way, can't do it, snow plow. How come you can go over to Fossil Creek and they have like up through, what is that, Lady Moon? They're big, large speed bumps. And they're striped. They're striped. So you see them. There's no way you're gonna go faster than 30. You're gonna get launched.
Is when you hit it from a noise standpoint, you're.
Yeah. I've got a picture of it, a skid mark right up to the speed. So, somebody hit one back there and went, oh, there's another one. So that's what controls the traffic. And I'm concerned about the speed, not so much how many cars are going. Right.
And that's one of what Ben was talking about with our recommendations, the narrowing of the lanes, those travel lanes.
Right.
Getting that down to 10.5 feet provides a narrower space for somebody to drive. It's a mental piece that helps slow people down. It makes you pay attention to the lines on the road. Removing the center turn lane gets those 2 lanes closer together too. The drivers are paying attention.
Those left turns are gonna start slowing down the traffic without that turn. People got to slow down behind, right? Back in the corner, did you guys have a question?
So I think the biggest issue right now is the speed. We get on the corner of long speed and steeplechase. So if you go long speed, it's not. You get up.
Works in 4 corners.
It's also
Slows me down.
steeplechase. There's times where you try to back in there, and try to get out, people want to stop. There's times we turn left to go in, to turn onto our street, people have passed us on the left side. So for me, the biggest issue is the speed. Like I have a little kid, like I won't even let her go that way out of our neighborhood, right? Like I don't even want her on the sidewalk. I've had a car roll into our backyard at 1 in the morning. Because kids think it's a road no one patrols. And that's what the kid told us the next day when he came back by to get his stuff, right? Like their car ended up in our backyard and he was probably 10 foot from dying if anybody that called, right? So to me, I understand the street's big, built it to house all that traffic, right? But it seems like we haven't done anything to control that traffic that's on, right? I've seen more patrol cars lately, stuff like that. I appreciate that. They're a limited resource, I understand that. But I've seen a cop go down the road and 3 seconds later, there's someone that's going as fast as the car in front.
Yeah.
And that's what I see all the time because I'm right off that street is whoever's the first car is controlling the speed. And I don't know how many times I've seen people pass people in that turn lane right now, going down that road, and that's the dangerous part of it. Is like we got to find a way to control that speed if we're going to have that much traffic on it. And I won't, like I said, I wouldn't let her cross the street to go the other way across there right now because it's too dangerous. Like
So to respond to that, previously those side streets had yield signs onto
Yeah.
Steeplechase Drive. And that was one effort that the town did to help with some of that, controlling a little piece of it incrementally. We changed all of the yield signs to.
Yeah.
I would tell you right now, it's just too easy to go down Steeplechase Drive. Like, it's just a big old wide thing. You can go as fast as you want. There's not one stop sign. There's not.
Yeah.
I mean, from fairgrounds to the roundabout, I think there's the one stop sign. That's it, right? And so it's too easy.
And that's exactly.
The steeplechase, not to Crossroads.
I just have a question. I mean, this is not for you because you're not the police, maybe it's the mayor. So I come from Northern Virginia, which has a ton of traffic. And so they had speed traps where they could pull 12, 15 cars over. They'd have a cop with a speed gun, and then half a mile down the road, they pull them over. And that's a hell of a deterrent when people see all those cars. Does the Windsor Police have like an unmarked car or can they do something like that?
I mean, that's a question for me. We'd have to do the police, but I mean, we do have a marked cars, yes.
That, but I'm saying the way you guys having one Windsor police officer pull over a car every hour while it's good, it's kind of not that good.
Yeah, especially when you have that much traffic, if you're averaging 3.
I'm telling you, you see all those cars pulled over and which A, the town can make some money, and B, people are gonna really see that, and that's gonna slow the traffic down and send a message.
So we have contacted and from engineering, we've been working with PD to help with enforcement. Another mitigation step that we are looking at and that we'll be installing the speed feedback signs along Steeplechase. So while the posted speed limit is 35, people are driving faster than that. That's a visual cue too that, hey, you're speeding, you need to slow down, here's what the post.
Yeah, I understand that, but it's a much better visual to see multiple cars pulled over by multiple police. Because right now it's kind of.
I'll talk to them. I'll see what I'll see what the options are. But at the end of the day, I can't do it this way. We can certainly make suggestions.
I would like.
When all this came out, I started driving Steeplechase every day, even though it's out of my way, on the way there, on the way home, hopefully it takes times. And I mean, I've seen the police presence. I've noticed it. It's been going on for a few months now.
Now, I would like to commend the police because we live on Steeplechase and we've talked to a number of them and they regularly patrol. They've been making a fair amount of money off of it. And, they don't do I know what you're talking about. I've seen. Yeah, I appreciate the police. So, but, whether they'll do that here or not, first of all, there wouldn't be anywhere for you to pull everybody off. Right. But.
Yeah, I will just say that that's definitely part of our plan is to continue that stepped up enforcement with the police. Yeah.
I have something to contradict everybody else. Why should Steeplechase be 35 or lower than 35 when New Liberty is 40, is the same size road and has a lot more buildings built on it with a lot more cross streets?
He wants to increase speed.
The driveway is on.
Oh, do the opposite, everybody.
Houses and have circular drives. They were required to have circular drives so that they aren't required to back on just.
So why should we lower the speed limit on a road with a lot less side traffic? That's the same size as one with a higher speed. And that's why people are doing 40 on Steeplechase, because it's 40 on New Liberty.
It's a complicated puzzle, right? You have a lot of moving parts and it's very complex and parts of our
The
analysis
solution here is not lowering the speed.
Well, but yes, it is.
Yes,
The solution is lowering it to 30, but I would agree with him on one thing, is that New Liberty is, and this is why I don't think that putting the two lanes together, bike lanes, that we get the people that are the more serious bikers steaming up and down the road. They usually are around noon because they're guys that are taking their noon lunch ride or they're on the weekend. But very few people ride a bike on Steeplechase. And the reason is, and I don't know if you're aware of this because you may be from here, but the sidewalk that's all along Steeplechase is the Windsor Trail. Now, I can tell you from having lived on there that most of the people that ride bicycles are on the Windsor Trail.
No,
They are
I can see that.
children, moms, dads, those kind of people that are riding it. They do not ride out into the street. And if you put bike lanes out there, you're basically saying, okay, here's a way that if somebody is turning left, I can just go around them on that side. So I think it's better.
That
if you
pavement's
have
already
that-
there,
if-
right?
huh?
The pavement's already there.
Yeah.
And so,
Right, but
So
if you
we-
have
to
those
take that
two
pavement
lanes
away
facing
would-
each other, you have more potential for wrecks, to be
Yes.
honest with you.
no, again, there's been a lot of studies on this, and that is not the case. When you
Well, I can
introduce bike
guarantee on our
lanes,
curve, there will
when
be.
you introduce bike lanes and you narrow the lanes, there's been a number of studies that have shown that that will lower speeds on the entire course.
Why not just make the speed limit 30?
Again,
That's reasonable.
people
It's a
don't.
residential area.
People don't drive.
And in
based
the
on
state of
road
Colorado,
signs.
residential areas are 35.
Yeah.
By state
So
law.
we'll
So
keep
drive 35
coming back to some of these questions. I know you guys have a lot of questions and comments, which is great. But I want to touch on some of the other planning efforts that the town is working on and kind of our general process overall. So we have, and I touched on it earlier, but there's a road impact fund, right? That's the big pot of money I mentioned earlier. So for each new home that's built and developed in the area within Windsor limits and the multifamily homes that are being developed, those apartment complexes and condos, and those are contributing for each new home over $4,000 each. The multifamily, this figure here directly from the Rain Dance neighborhood is contributing almost $1.5 million, so $1.45 million. And that money is used not only for Steeplechase, it's not only used for Colorado Crossroads, but it goes into a fund that is used and appropriated for improvements over time. And one project, and we've looked at it, we've talked about it, and it's been a part of both of these studies, Steeplechase Drive and the Colorado Boulevard study that's prepared, was looking at the Colorado Boulevard and Crossroads traffic signal that you've talked about. We understand that there are improvements that need to be made to that, whether it stays as a traffic signal, improvements need to be made. An alternative that we're looking at pending budget approval and those sorts of things, but beginning design on that as early as next year, and then construction in 2023 and moving forward. So the plan for that would be to generally design that roundabout to carry 2 lanes of traffic at the ultimate build out. Right now, what exists there is the one lane each direction. And so that's part of too, maybe what Ben has been helping the town evaluate. And it's just one intersection now. And we understand there are many other intersections, other routes. We have a lot of new drivers coming to Windsor, people from Loveland and surrounding areas that are going to events at the event centers and things that we have. So we recognize that there's this road network that we have that as a town engineering staff member, it's my job to help evaluate and try to make it as efficient and as safe as we can, while considering the town, all of the town. And one effort is beginning with Colorado here in Crossroads. So we'll try to continue our incremental approaches. We can continue more of the questions and comments, and just gonna open it up to you guys again. And you have been very patiently waiting. So let's start a question with you.
Okay, I want to go back to Haystack and Steeplechase. And I saw you, I can't see it from back here, I apologize. I want to see where the crosswalks are, because while I understand doesn't always hold all this traffic. I understand they're supposed to do the speed limit or whatever. It is not safe to walk in these neighborhoods right now. And I am interested in what are the safety features that you're, one, we got the noise problem and the traffic problem, but what do you do about people who used to walk in the neighborhood and can't anymore? And in my mind, that is very dangerous. And I see you have 3 dots, but I don't know what are those the
Yeah,
crosswalks
so
that
that
you're
is-
talking about putting in?
Yes, and so
And
that's
what does
a,
that crosswalk look like?
so the crosswalk looks like what you would see at a typical crosswalk. So they're the white bars.
What roads are they?
They're Haystack Drive in the middle, Long Peak Circle East and Long Peak Circle West.
So where is the crosswalk for Haystack going, into the ditch? There's nothing, when you go to the end of Haystack, you have to walk in the ditch. I don't know who the gentleman is.
It just allows you to cross to the other side of the road, if you want to walk on the other side of the road.
Well,
And by providing those bike lanes, that is also a safer place for pedestrians, right? Because you have
Well,
now
then you
10
gotta worry
feet.
about the speed bump.
Now you have
I
10
mean-
feet of separation between you and those vehicles.
Is it gonna have like flashing lights or?
So at this stage, what was identified in Apex Design study was the locations, the intersections here that we acknowledge there's an opportunity for improving pedestrian safety. We obviously, with just having a study completed at this point, we don't have a final design on those yet. So evaluating crossing a ditch or connecting to that Windsor Trail on the north side of Steeplechase is a more specific question directed to the final design and the design of what those crossings look like. So it's at this stage, I'm not going to say it's not going to connect to that trail because it's going to be evaluated as we design crossings. John,
Can you talk about, we do have pedestrian guidelines though that.
The north side, sidewalk on the north side of Steeplechase, yeah. Sidewalk.
Oh,
yeah,
but I'm going, he evaluates dozens of intersections every year to see if we meet those pedestrian guidelines and put in those flashers, and we will make those improvements. We budget for them every year, and if it shows that those are mandated or warranted, we will go with those improvements.
Anybody that's walking on Steeplechase in the bike lane is a goddamn idiot because there's the Windsor Trail and it's far safer. So that's a no contender, sorry.
I just want to get to the trail
Yeah.
from Haystack, because here's the problem that you have. When you go to cross that street, you can have the flashing lights and all you want, but if you look to the west and it comes up a hill, and if you start across Steeplechase from Haystack, you have to catty corner if you don't want to go through the ditch. You are not fast enough when that car hits the top of that hill at 35, 40 miles an hour, you can't get across.
It's
And
the
I'm
same
gonna bet
thing.
you money you haven't been in the ditch, I have.
It's the same
I mean,
thing at Shibano. You
It
come up
is.
on Shibano and where our house is, the few cars come around that road so fast that you can't get
You
across.
can't, it doesn't matter what you do, you cannot get across the road unless you run.
So what
And
you-
that's why I want straight across, and I would love to see them put the ditch, so you can go straight across. It's much faster than going to the
walking
driveway.
along the road
To the,
through a
so I
driveway.
really ask you to consider that, because, one, it's that guy's driveway. You know, that's really kind of unfair to him too, you know? They have us all run
Walking
over
through
the
there.
driveway.
I agree, I mean, I have a hard time build that crosswalk to nowhere. It's just, but so, it hasn't been designed yet, and, you know, everyone we're talking to, I pulled up like Google Maps, so I'm looking at the intersection, and, you know, there's a side of somebody's property there. But, certainly, I think if there's gonna be a crosswalk there, that's something we have to consider. Would be getting you across the crosswalk and have something, a little bridge where you can get over to the sidewalk. It seems like, yeah, I can't imagine we would.
Yeah.
You know, those expensive, but I can't imagine we would put a crosswalk
I say them,
on
but
that. So I think, you know,
I'm
that's
not saying
feedback we can take for sure. Appreciate your.
nothing else is gonna happen.
So it's need to be looked at maybe.
30 miles an hour. People are just gonna ditch.
long speed. So Haystack, there's a problem with the hill, you can't see, you got to dive across the road. But somebody else mentioned Shimano as well, it's right on the corner there. And so maybe it's like at Long Peak, because I live over here on the left side.
Okay.
And in the evening, I walk pretty much every evening with my kids. And I don't really have a problem crossing the street. Because he goes way as part of it.
Some people down.
There is a village on the Shimano and Haystack, that might be where you might take that crosswalk and put.
We'll, when we're looking at the design of those, we'll look at those site distance requirements and make sure that they're adequate. And if they're not, then, we'll look for other locations.
Would it be possible to put a roundabout at Haystack?
I mean, it's gonna cost a lot of money. It's
It's kind of like down the West Valley. Exactly what, that's in the roundabout there.
And I don't know the right of way impacts of that, as far as impacting people's properties as well. It would likely impact those homes and their
I have a
properties.
second part to my question.
I'm sorry?
I have a second part to the question.
Go ahead.
The other one is I'm interested in speed limit on Haystack. Since there are no sidewalks and there is more traffic. That's a challenge. Clearly, I think sidewalks would be difficult, so I don't know how to manage it, because I walk Haystack, I live right in the middle between Crossroads and Steeplechase, so I walk a fair amount up there, and 35, so they're driving at least 40, and there's not a sidewalk. And I understand, I saw the white lines and the yellow line and all of that, but that doesn't, at this point yet, has not helped a lot. And I mean, even 30, like they said, 7th Street in Windsor's 30. Well, we're talking about all these driveways on that road, and people are driving 40 miles an hour now. I understand you can't control the cars and the amount of traffic, and I get that, but no sidewalks and all those driveways on that street, is that really a 35-mile-an-hour road in a neighborhood where there are families? I mean, I'm struggling with the speed up there. Steeplechase, I get the 35, no problem there. But it seems to me either that or it needs to be 25 when pedestrians are present. I don't know what the answer is, but.
What about speed bumps on Haystack?
Yeah, I think speed bumps are good.
It would deter everybody and push them around to 392 and up to Crossroads. Because if they went through there on the speed bumps, they would say, no, don't go that way.
That's right.
Bingo.
For those of us who live on that street, I don't want to speed bump on my street.
Yeah.
I don't speed
The
bumps.
drawback to
And
speed
if you
bumps
lower it
is
to
that
30.
unless you put one about every 50 yards,
I know.
people just go over it and then you hear raw, and then they hit the next one, slow down, and they raw. And so you gotta put them like washboard all the way up the road, so.
That's true, and they also push traffic just to your neighbor's street, right? And they don't want the traffic either, right? But there's a network that distributes the traffic, and you start clogging up one street, it just pushes your problem onto your neighbor's street. And so that's something we want to be equitable.
It's not gonna push it to the side streets, they can't go anywhere.
But I mean, there is also the issue that you mentioned, that you tend to get speeding between the speed humps. You tend to get a lot of traffic.
Noise would be much worse.
You tend to get a lot of traffic noise, not only from going over the hump, but then people accelerating and braking between the speed humps.
And if you put a speed bump on our curb, we'll have even more people in our ditch, so don't do that.
Maybe it won't go that way. Speed bumps on like Steeplechase Drive, that'd be tough, the main collector road or whatever we call it, but main road like that. I'll just say as a town board representative, when this is all going on next door and everything. A lot of people are asking for speed bumps, but I did get a lot of personal messages. People said, I don't want speed bumps, don't slow it down. And so, that's something, if you took a survey of the neighborhood, I don't know if it'd be 60-40 which way, really. So that's a tough one. And then my only other comment is, we need to be careful. A lot of the message I had, a lot of conversations I had, weren't always about the speed of the traffic, it was about deter people to go somewhere else. They don't come to our neighborhood. And that's just not our goal here. That's not my goal. I generally go to 392, but my family, if I go to Budweiser, it's not Steeplechase. It's, I pay my tax, so it is a public road. So we do need to, take care of safety, slow things down. Speed's my biggest concern.
Right, and to continue that, piggyback on that, speed humps and striping and these speed feedback signs are methods of slowing traffic. So right now, what we are trying to implement based on the national studies and the data and the support from those studies and the research, we're trying to narrow the lanes and we'll continue to monitor the speeds and work with PD and continue to work on the effectiveness, right? And making sure that, but okay, you have a question.
So you guys have known about like rain in for quite some time, we're like projecting all this traffic. on Steeplechase. So when are you actually, when the striping, the crosswalk, and so on, is that like 4 years down the road? Or can we
This
look at this year?
This still is a big.
Yeah, you're looking at trying to slow down traffic by eliminating turn lanes and having bike lanes. Why not just drop the closest speed limit down to 25, add a three-way stop at Haystack, Steeplechase, and sort of controlling it during commute hours. I think that would be a quick, easy approach to try and get traffic to other streets or slow them down. I live, my property borders on Steeplechase, I'm out in the yard all the time, just like, you know. And there are cars going 60 miles an hour. I know you would step with average, but when you're there, when you're living there, and you see a car going 60, 65 miles an hour, busting down. There are kids riding bicycles.
Yeah, let me answer that question, please.
Have you guys had the car go through the front yard?
No, that wasn't.
So yeah,
let's
try to answer that question. So there's been a lot of studies and a lot of support that adding speed limit signs and dropping the speed limit doesn't impact people's driving. You can give out more tickets, but when the police aren't there, people still drive based on how they feel on the street. So if there's a wide street and a 10-mile-per-hour speed limit, people are still going to drive the speed that they feel safe driving.
Yeah, people feel safe driving 5 miles an hour over the speed limit. You go down 7th Street, people are doing 35 miles an hour. So I think it's much more expensive faster to go over the coast speed limit. If you start dropping that down and then start taking it.
The electronic speed limit that you guys are talking about, the speed limit, trying to show us how fast you're going. It does get to me because I know when I see it, I automatically think, oh, they're really going that fast.
Yeah, so let me answer the other part of your question was why don't we put a stop sign out on Haystack or somewhere on this roadway? Again, putting a stop sign somewhere where it's not warranted, and there are warrants, national warrants for stop signs. What it typically results in is people running through that stop sign, and it can create a safety issue. If people don't ever see anyone on the side street or rarely see anyone on the side street, and they're forced to stop every time they go through this intersection, after a while, they start running that stop sign, and that can lead to crashes. And again, there's national data that supports this. And so there are ways that we warrant stop signs, and they're based on national studies and a lot of data. So we tend not to put stop signs just to try and slow traffic. It's not, stop signs are not intended to be traffic calming devices. That's just not the intent of a stop sign. They're intended to control traffic and make it safe, but not to slow traffic down. It's not the intent.
So I hear a lot say like more than 60 miles an hour down Steeplechase. But none of us like to sit around the radar. So how many did you actually measure on your study that showed people going those like extreme speeds?
Yeah.
I can pull it up.
10 o'clock at night on a Friday night.
Yep, they're going every bit of 60
and
down that hill.
Yes.
I don't have to guess, I can see.
Because I had
And what we're proposing is to provide some mitigation, but to continue to monitor this. We're not just gonna walk away and say, okay, we're done, right? We'll continue to monitor this. If speeding still remains an issue, maybe there's additional mitigation.
I would say she's exactly right. It's after dark, it's bad.
It's like
There's a guy on a scooter that comes by at 50.
It's a motorized.
You can hear him coming for a mile. Again, our efforts are to continue.
So
speed
the-
enforcement.
The answer there is that
Let's let everybody talk.
Believe me.
Go ahead.
Likes it.
You keep referencing national data and studies, and I'm just curious if any of those studies were done in a similar neighborhood. Because we have a different neighborhood than a lot of the neighborhoods around. They're larger lots, they're more estate lots. And one thing I haven't heard anybody mention is we've got a lot of tractors in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean.
We've got a lot of things
Yeah.
in the neighborhood that can cause serious issues traffic wise with people coming through there at higher speeds.
So we, Town of Windsor Engineering, we have implemented the narrower through lanes in other areas around Windsor to it, and we have seen the effectiveness of lowering those speeds and continued efforts to monitor them, and that I feel like supports the national studies we keep referencing, but we have implemented that and we've done it here too. So it's not just at the national level, but I'm not sure, about.
I mean, 2 or 3 times a year, I'll be pulling out onto the road to move my tractor from one side of the driveway to the other. And a car comes whizzing by, nearly hits me. It's a different neighborhood.
Exactly.
Horse trails crossing Steeplechase. How many of the neighborhoods in the study include that?
Well, I mean, again, the studies they do try and get a cross section of areas, and they don't just focus on urban settings.
So we great to collect this data again, maybe sometime in the future.
60 days here.
It'd be interesting to see if your stripes actually did anything on Steeplechase. I mean, on Haystack. And then if you can paint Steeplechase, it'd be interesting to see that as well. I mean, if it works, then you can argue with it.
We want something, we're good, try it.
Never know. So again, going back to the very beginning of this meeting, we are here for you. This is your opportunity to voice to us. Here's what we're experiencing as residents of the neighborhood. And I'm trying to absorb and, we are listening to all of them. So.
I just want to say, Terry, that the number of cars is one thing, and speed is one thing, but I'm telling you, after dark, early in the morning or at night, can we have these many cars, but they really are.
And that's good feedback, because we can tell the chief, you're gonna do targeted enforcement, go in the evening hours, that's when the residents. Sometimes we don't get that, and we tell the chief, and then they send somebody out at 10 o'clock in the
It's
morning.
like a raceway.
So if you have information that's specific, they send it to Scott.
The data should show that.
Yeah.
Because you have time to go.
We do.
So you should be able to talk that about the city.
Sure, and we can share that with the police department as well.
It's definitely worse than summer months.
Yeah, and that's typical. It's not unusual that people speed when there's less traffic, right? There's less friction in the road, and that's not unusual. I will say also, though, that those active signs will be most effective in the dark, because that's when they'll really see.
So I don't want to belabor anything. So all of the stuff that everybody has said, I think makes a lot of sense. What you've said makes sense. So let's all just give it a try. I agree with Barry. We can't stop people from driving on a public road. There's nothing we can do about it. So we'll do the mitigation, we'll do everything we do. But the one thing that I would like, well, there's two things actually, but one of them is kind of a personal thing. The one thing for everyone is, our area is a residential area. The one thing that I would love to see you do is say, no trucks over 15,000 pounds.
Yeah.
No trucks. And I would make New Liberty that as well. Because as this gentleman pointed out, it's 40 there, it's 35 on their street. They're both got a little narrow lane with a bike lane, which when you've got a big semi-trailer roaring down there, the bike guy has got nowhere to go and he's in danger. So neither one of those roads should be a truck route. It's fine if Barry wants to take a shortcut through there, I think that's great. You know, if you want to leave the speed limit at 35, that's fine, because you know, the problem is everyone is, there are always a bunch of people that are going to speed, right? Like, you know, the individuals, I agree with them. I agree with you guys. We live right on Steeplechase. We hear the guy on his 55 mile an hour or whatever. He's following cars really fast. You get crotch rockets that we've even seen him on his wheel going down the road. You're always going to get those kind of people. There's nothing you can do. Speed limits, narrowing lane. There's nothing you can do to stop that kind of person. You just hope that Mother Nature stops them at some point. They don't involve anybody else. But the one thing that I would really dearly love to see is no trucks through a residential area. And then the second thing is when you're putting up those flashing lights to tell people you're going over the speed limit, where that curve sign is, put a flashing light that's solar that flashes and says curve ahead. You know, let people know, you know. Yeah, curve ahead, slow down.
And I think it's possible too, I think with some of those, John, correct me if I'm wrong, some of those active signs that tell you to slow down. I think we can get them where we collect data, so you get data all the time. And so where the police, you know, they could potentially see.
Then they get a real study.
When the problem is, yes, so I know that's come up in the past.
What's speed cameras? A study of speed cameras?
You mean speed for camera enforcement?
We have issued tickets.
Yeah, I don't have that policy on that.
The state of Colorado says, the state of Colorado, the law, the way I understand it is that you have to actually physically be given the ticket by a police officer. And if the light takes a picture of you, I don't think you can legally, you know, that's why a lot of people can get out of that. So unless that's changed. That doesn't necessarily mean.
I think that's a bigger policy issue for the town.
And
It's not something we would just implement in one spot. It would be a bigger policy issue in the town.
But also continued efforts with the PD. I have a question in the back.
So we ride our bikes a lot, and we'll cross over and go on to the road. And, they have a flashing light. And rarely do people like actually stop for us. So unless you're gonna put a big flashing bright sign that lets people know that people are crossing, I don't even think that, I mean, it wouldn't be worth it and someone's gonna get hit. And also, we have 2 bus stops in our neighborhood and only one of those is included on the camera thing. And if you really wanted to get good data, I live at that corner on the east one, East Circle. And I watch people nearly miss the bus on a regular basis. And I would think you'd want to be ahead of getting ahead.
Move all the school buses off.
Is
We
when,
don't belong.
because Michael, the bus stops on Steeplechase, they probably have to put that out.
I mean,
That seems to be probably something that needs to be run to the school. That's.
I don't know, they've moved it down since, in the last couple of years, they moved it, but I mean, there's parents that have to go to work, they leave their kids on the side of the road.
Yeah.
It's a curve, it's scary, I mean.
So your first comment about the design of those crosswalks, again, has not been decided. We do have pedestrian crossing guidelines.
Yeah, I'm just saying, when you're
Evaluating
following
that
your
too.
guidelines, you're not gonna put flashing lights in, I can't. move people. I mean, I physically will stop in the road so she can make it. If they won't stop for a person.
have any follow-up comments to
No, this
any of the
is an
information?
Ongoing thing, and I appreciate what staff has done. Everyone showing up, you never know how many people get, this is a big turnout for our neighborhood meeting. Most of the time, this many people, so Steeplechase is definitely not only a mobile neighborhood, but a very engaged neighborhood. The thing I will add, we are going into budget season, set the prep for it, finalized. In November, we'll be looking at a lot of these things. I'll share some personal comments on the apartments. The apartments to your west, Mark Cross, this ironically right at the beginning of this meeting. That car is all parked along Steeplechase, west of you. And I've seen that, I go to that car wash, because I always go Steeplechase just to observe it. And, so that there's some other things that come up here tonight as well that we'll address. I have a whole bunch of things we can look into as far as bus stops, various things with the police, trucks, and so on. But the whole area with rain dance, the apartments that are going in now along Colorado Boulevard, for example, I didn't buy the traffic study that the developer put forward. And so, I was pushing for, I want to see a roundabout. So we have other neighborhoods, High Point Estates right next door, for example, is how do they get out and go north, take a left out of the neighborhood? You know what I mean? It's getting more difficult all the time. So Steeplechase is one challenge, we have a few others as well. And I think the road impact fees that came up here, every house is built, there's a road impact fee, there's a parks fee. The whole thought of those fees would be as people move here, they put in money to a parks fee, the building the park, the growth is paying for the park. Hopefully all the residents don't have to pay for the park, right? Same thing with roads. And so my big push, there's no law or rule that says the park and the rain dance impact fees have to be used right there. But certainly as your town board representative, I'll be pushing for a lot of that money to be spent in the areas most impacted by rain dance. I don't anticipate too much pushback from my peers to do that. And so we've had various meetings just on County Road 13 itself. How are we gonna, when I moved in there, it was only paved to the top of the hill, you know what I mean? And now there's been a lot of improvements over time. The roundabout at Steeplechase and Colorado Boulevard, that was almost taken off the table at one point, and I kind of fought to get that put back. So there are going to be some improvements coming up to New Liberty. It's going to be widened a little bit because they made it too narrow, and the fire stations right in and stuff like that. So there will be some additional stuff going on there. And then then you have Cherry Blossom and Pear Blossom. I'm hoping Pear Blossom, we talked about Haystack, there's lots of opportunities for roundabouts. Someone mentioned 7th Street, we are looking at narrowing 7th Street as well, maybe safer there. That's probably one of our most accident prone roads in town, but at the end of the day, the growth and the traffic, I feel like we do so much in town board, you see all the projects, how much money we spend. But the growth is so staggering. I just saw that the school system, RE4 added 800 kids from the end of May when the semester ended. They have 800 kids in the year before, over 700. And so, there's more cars, there's more people, the schools are starting to open, so we're doing the best we can to keep up. But the other thing I'll mention is, 3 years ago when I came in, I'd see stuff like this, does it really work? The narrowing of lanes. And these guys have impressed me with the things they do work. Some of the accidents we've had on Steeplechase, somebody falling asleep, a newspaper delivery person thing. The kids, who knows how fast they were going when they went over that dance report into somebody's backyard there, none of these things are going to fix people who are driving like maniacs, unfortunately. And but we do all these things, and I think the big thing is that we keep on it. And my information's online. I brought some business cards. I'll hang out afterwards. So.
Jerry, I know that we haven't seen the impact from what's going to be happening at the range with all of the property and all that. Is there any way that when an event gets out, that there could be some kind of traffic flow that goes either south on Capital Flat or north of Capital Flat and doesn't necessarily go through Steeplechase?
I think that, I mean, that's something we can definitely consider. One thing I was hoping for, Matt, before we get to the question, is with the improvements to Canada Flat. I think what we used to have, I used to have Eagles season tickets for my kids' sports kind of took over. I think people like Fort Collins would come out and go to the south because the Nick 25 is too hard to go Canada Flat without on 392. And so there are going to be a lot of improvements to the north that hopefully get a lot of traffic to flow to the north. As far as coming out right now, Steeplechase, that's something we'll have to work with Larimer County.
And
Well, you don't want
City
to
of Loveland.
keep Windsor residents from.
Yeah. It's something to consider, but yeah, I don't know if they've been. Because I don't feel that Steeplechase unless there's something in that area is going to do. If I'm going to the I-25, I'll take Crossroads. But I know other people may do it differently.
And there are quite a bit of plans in the works and design right now on that whole intersection moving traffic during events and how.
Because I know even for the apartment sides on that side, it's narrow because you've got all the cars parked on. And you get some trucks in there coming out of that parking lot, and you're gonna have to.
I'll be honest, those apartments over there, those were being approved around the time I was running for office and stuff. And since then, we have increased the requirement that apartments have to have parking. So we shouldn't have as much of that on the other side. But we do need to do something because there's so much parking on the road. And it's almost, I feel like we do that was there. Okay. There's allowed to have it on the parking. I don't even know if we can do anything else to make it go on parking. I thought those were supposed to be bike. And then also there were car parking. So yeah, that's a mark for. That's one of the parking. That's one of those things I'll look into, yeah. Where they go though. Oh.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your introduction. Are you a consultant for the city?
I am, yes, I'm a consultant, but I'm contract to act as the traffic.
So you've already turned in your report?
Yes.
That's, and so that's why you're standing with that about the narrowing lanes and all that. Instead of considering this lowering the speed limit as an improvement.
No, we're considering everything that you guys are telling us right now. We're not saying no to anything. We're taking, that's what this meeting is for, is to get feedback from you. And we're not being rigid with our recommendation.
I was told from manager at the Weiser Event Center that they are trying to get traffic to go east through Steeplechase, and then they're going north and south on County Road 5 to get out of it that faster. So, and that's why they're tying up with Steeplechase.
I can speak to them a little bit. I've seen the presentation that they're doing over a $2 million, like $240 million expansion of the Budweiser Event Center. There's a bunch of stuff happening. What they're doing is right now the arena circle goes close to the building. So people park and they walk across the road. It's very inefficient. Bad design. So as they expanded, what they're trying to do is move the arena circle further out. So people come in, they park, and then they're not walking across the road to get to the event center or other events. That's the main motivation. I never heard anything about routing traffic through Steeplechase. I mean, people who live to the east might go that way naturally. But I think if people in Loveland, Fort Collins, they can revive and get out as quick as they can. But it will, yes, Steeplechase will go straight into that arena circle at some point. 3 years, 5 years, or when it will happen. But that's the plan.
So I also want to acknowledge all of the participants online. We had another 16 now when I look, there were more earlier too. But we've got similar questions to what you all have raised, and so trying to respond and hear your concerns and share with those online too. who couldn't hear, but, their input is valuable, and I think, as we mentioned too, we'll send out the presentation. We'll give the information to our communications staff who can help to distribute that for those of you who would like to see it. We'll also publish the Zoom meeting so that we have the recorded version with some of those questions and things that we've talked about tonight. Make that available. And there are a number of written questions and comments in the chat here too. So I'll after we finish this meeting, I'll make sure that I go through those and see if there's anything else that was not addressed, and make sure we're hearing everybody. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for coming. I mean, it's overwhelming to some degree to listen. I mean, everybody has unique experiences within the neighborhood and very specific examples of things that you've seen and things that have happened. And that's, again, part of our feedback. And the reason that we wanted to open this up to everybody tonight was to hear those and to consider all of that information in our plans, or, moving forward with ways to try to mitigate speeds and the other concerns that we brought up tonight. So thank you all for coming. I don't want to kick anybody out, but if we do have questions, I'd be happy to take information and we can follow up. If you have phone numbers, emails, some way. We also have our communication staff, Nicole. No.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
So I really was serious about that last year because
Yes, sir. Just a quick question for you. I'm on Haystack. They striped our street already. There's still signs up on our street saying you can't park on the side of the street. There have been for 2 weeks. They were done with that.
Associated with the striping?
Yeah, they were done with that 2 weeks ago, and we've actually had contractors, different people try to get in, and they see the sign and go away.
I'll make sure that we look at that and see because if everything's done,
Yeah,
it makes
I mean,
sense to
it's-
have that removed.
The sign's dated for a specific date, but yet
That's expired and they're still sitting.
Yeah.
I'll definitely, so along all of Haystack, I'll strike that.
Yeah, and I realize it's probably not your department,
But
but
it is. But
it's just kind of frustrating. It's part of the contractor's issue too. They should be able to be smart enough to read the sign and see the date's already been passed, but it is kind of a trouble. Some of those people.
Okay, I can look into that. Thank you.
We have the same issue. It was for weeks we had that, but they didn't do anything. But
that section of tape just crossroads where they had to they got everything else done really quickly, and then that section they spent a week and a half tearing it up, like the signs are on that part, but on
I just want to thank you. You guys, it's a big issue. It's hard. You know, like I told my husband, he couldn't come. And I said, it's our neighborhood, it's our community, it's our utilities, so our money, it's our responsibility.
If nobody from the neighborhood brings it up, it raises concerns that we don't hear about it. So,
Right. All you gotta do is go to next door. See what they're paying. But I, and honestly, we don't think that it's that big, because it was only mentioned once. It was planned from the beginning that Steeplechase is gonna be a major street.